Hello everyone and welcome to this another episode of 3D Prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanas. In the last episode, we built the particle systems that were going to be used to control our actual explosion, or to actually build our explosion. We built our explosion in particles. Anyway, in this episode, guys, we are going to be taking a look at finishing up our explosion. What we want to happen in this episode is we're going to create a light, we're going to create an audio source to make our exploding sound, and lastly, we're going to create a script that's going to control our explosion and actually affect or damage things that are around it. Alright, guys, let's get started. Okay, guys, so in the last episode, we created ourselves this explosion right here. Stop, simulate. Bam, there it is. Let's take a look at that on the big screen to see how it looks. Boom, that's going to be our explosion. And obviously, it's occurring immediately upon starting the game there, and that's not what we want. We want to set off an explosion later on down the line, so we're going to end up making a prefab and instantiating this object and making the explosion. Right now, there's no sound, and that's not what we want. We want to make sure there are sounds involved. You want to make sure that when the explosion goes off, there's a nice big boom or something like that. So I'm going to start off right away by adding a component, and I'm going to add an audio source, and I'm going to go in and find myself an explosion noise. What did I call it? Rocket explode. We'll use that one. All right, that's going to be our explosion. We're going to play on awake, and if I just hit play right now, there's our big boom. And that's pretty good. Now, this is set up as a 2D sound. Our spatial blend is 2D. I don't want that. I'm going to move it all the way across so that it is a 3D sound, meaning as we move away from it, we can actually hear it less and less and less. All right, that's pretty darn quiet right now. I'm going to set this up so that I can hear it a goodly distance away. And I'm going to dump all of these guys because I don't need all of these points. And I'm going to adjust this a tad. Like this. So we're getting kind of a decent little drop off here. Now when I hit play, alright, that's not so bad. That's my exploding sound. And I just kind of randomly chose these numbers, guys. Go in and punch something until you find something on your curve that you like. Basically, I want it to be a 3D sound so that the farther away the explosion occurs, the less likely my character is to hear it, and the closer we are to it, the more loud it is. Alright, so far so good. That's what I really wanted to do. I'm going to turn off this for 1 second. I'm going to shrink it down. And I'm going to add a component. And I'm going to add a script, an existing script called Destroy Me. You guys remember Destroy Me? And I'm going to allow this thing to exist for, I don't know, let's say 3 seconds is probably long enough. So every time you can see it down here in the explosion. Let me turn off Maximize on Play. I've got my explosion down there. Now when I hit play, it's going to go off right away. And if I scroll down, it's still there for 3 seconds. And afterwards, I clean it up right away. So that's what my Destroy Me does, okay? And that's good. I don't want this thing sticking around. I want it to explode, and then I want it to be gone. Now, let's go back and take a look at the actual explosion itself. Right now, we've got this bright flash of light that occurs when the explosion happens. Stop and simulate. We got this bright flash of light, the smoke and the debris, etc. And that's great, but that doesn't actually light up our scene in any way. Excuse me. That doesn't actually light up our scene in any way. So what we're going to do is we're going to add to our explosion. We're going to say create, and we're going to add a light. And let's add a point light. And we're going to want this thing to be fairly large. I think I'm going to move it up a little tiny bit. So when it's on the ground, it's up a little tiny bit. Actually, I'll just zero it out for now, and I'll put it where it's supposed to be. Reset. I'm going to put the point light inside of my fiery explosion. And let's just name it right away to explosion light. Sure, explosion light, that's awesome. And let's zero that out once again. Let's reset it, reset. So it's kind of in the middle of where we want. I'm going to move it up a little tiny bit so that it is off the ground. In case we put our explosion on the ground, I want the light itself to be off the ground. And let's actually, let's increase the range of this light. We want the light itself to be able to light up anything that's around it. So you know what, 10 is probably pretty good. Let's see, let's scroll back. Yeah, that's pretty good. So that sphere shows me the amount of light that's going to be cast. Anything within the sphere might possibly be lit by the actual explosion. The intensity, let's turn it up a bit. Let's make it 3.5? I don't know. That's a guess. 3.5. And that way we've got a fair amount of light concentrated at the core, and then obviously it lessens as it goes towards the edges. We can either set it up with shadows or no shadows. It's going to be up to you. If you want to make it actually cast shadows and you're going to put it on hard shadows or soft shadows or whatever you want. Let's leave it as hard shadows. Sure, that's good. Everything else will stay exactly the same. So basically now this light, when this thing comes on, the light itself is going to be there, and we're going to want to turn it off. So we're going to probably want to make sure that our actual destroy me is an appropriate amount of time. And I think that the appropriate amount, the longest in here in our actual particle systems, this was 1.5 seconds. How long was our debris trail? Our debris took place over only 1.5 seconds. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to set up our destroy me to be 1.5 seconds as well. And that way we're going to get our light flash on and off. So when I hit play here, we're going to actually see our light source. Well, we didn't see it there because I didn't maximize it. We're going to see our light source flick on, cause some shadows and that kind of stuff to go around and then to die off. All right, and that works great. That works great. All right. So with that in place, the light in place, and the actual sound in place, we're ready to actually start our script work. And the script itself is going to do a number of things. I want the script to go through and to affect the character and to actually harm the character. So our script is going to be in charge of a number of different things. Let's go in right now, all the way to the bottom here. From the top layer, on our explosion layer, I'm going to add component, and I'm going to add a brand new script, and I'm going to call it explosion, controller. All right, and I'll double click to open that up. Now, the explosion controller is going to be in charge of a number of different things. Let me make this bigger for you guys to see. View, zoom in, view, zoom in, view, zoom in. How big can I make this? Maybe one more. View, zoom in. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's going to be in charge of a number of different things. Now, what I want it to do basically is we added a light to our actual explosion, and I want it to flare the light out and then make the light less and less as the explosion goes over time. I want the explosion itself to do damage to any of our characters or any of our creatures that are in the area. I want the explosion to add a force to any of the creatures or anything or any of the objects in the area that actually have a rigid body associated with them. So let's go in here, and I'm going to add right away a public light, and I'll call this explosion light. It's probably fine. Semicolon. Whoops. Semicolon and return. I'm then going to add a public float that I'm going to call power, and that's the amount of power that the explosion is actually going to have. I'm going to add a public float that I'm going to call a radius, and that radius is going to be the radius of the explosion. So anything within that radius is going to take damage and feel the power. All right, and lastly, I'm going to have a public float that I'm going to call damage, and that's the amount of damage that the explosion is going to cause. All right, let's go to our start, and let's set up a number of these variables. So first thing I'm going to need is a vector 3, and basically what I want to happen is I want to use the same technique we used for melee. I want to grow, or even that we used for the ground. Actually, I want to grow a sphere, and then any of the colliders that are within that sphere are going to be a game. Any of the colliders in the sphere that have a rigid body are going to take a damage or whatever in that form. All right, so let's a vector 3 that we're going to call explosion position, and we're going to set that equal to the transform dot position. So it's going to be located at the source of this explosion. That's the first thing. And what I want to do is I want to take a look. I want to find whatever colliders are in the area. So collider, and it's going to be an array of colliders. So I've got my oops, not that. I've got my my square brackets in there, and it's going to be an array of colliders that I'm going to simply call colliders. And it's going to equal physics dot, and we're going to use the overlap sphere, and once again this creates a sphere at position explosion position, and I want to create it with radius. All right, and I've made radius public so that we can change the size of different explosions. Some explosions might be smaller, some might be bigger, whatever. So basically, this is going to return an array of colliders, and for each collider that I actually intersect, I want to do something. So for each collider, and it's going to be capital C collider, hit in colliders. So for each collider that's actually in the colliders, I want to do some stuff. All right, so like that. Make sure I get my brackets in there. First of all, I want to check and see if there's a rigid bodies associated with it. So I'm going to check and see if there's any rigid body. I'll just call it RB. It's going to equal the hit dot get component. Hit dot get component, and so it's going to be really looking for a rigid body on the. I should have called it RB, not BB. It's going to be looking for a rigid body on the same location as the collider itself. Okay, that's normally where they are. Not necessarily always, but a lot of times that's where it is. So it's going to be looking for on anywhere that it's colliding. It's going to be looking for the for a rigid body on that actual object. All right, so it's going to look for hit. It's going to be looking for my angular bracket, my rigid body. All right, so it's going to go through and look for a rigid body if there is no rigid body. So if RB does not equal null, so as long as there is a rigid body, we want some stuff to happen. What we want to happen, first of all, is we want to use RB.add explosion force. And the explosion force is a built-in function that's going to allow us to apply a force directly to that rigid body. And it's going to allow us to apply a force of power, where from the location of explosion force position, or explosion position, radius away, and the actual explosion, the actual upwards modifier. So the upwards modifier, basically what it does is it allows you to apply a force upwards as well. So something's going to be thrown in the air. And you can either add it or not. It's going to be up to you. I'm going to add one of a force of 3. And that way we're going to kind of throw our things up in the air a little bit when they actually take the force. And lastly, you can have a force mode. And we're going to have force mode. Oops. We're going to have our force mode set to impulse. All right, so basically what this does is it's going to apply a force to the rigid body from the location of the actual explosion up to a radius away, and it's going to apply a force upwards, and it's going to apply it as an actual impulse force. All right, now next we want to check and see if it's it's our player or if it's a bad guy. All right, so if hit dot tag equals quotations player, then we want to do something here. We want to, let's add in our brackets. If it's our actual player, we want to add damage to it. So we're going to go through and we're going to actually look for our player health. All right, our player health, and we'll just call this in here player health, I guess, is perfectly fine. It's going to be equal to, and we're going to find it on our hit object. Hit dot game object dot get component, because we already know where it is. It's actually on the game object itself, and we want to get our player health. Boom, 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 and boom. So once we have our player health, now we can fully access any of the public scripts, and we're going to access the public script add damage. How much damage we're going to add? We're going to add damage. All right, good. Now let's close off our. We did already. Let's go here. Delete this. Delete. Backspace. Bam. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add our else if. So what if it's something else? What if it's not our player? What if it's our bad guy? Else if hit dot tag equals quotations enemy quotations. We're going to do some more stuff. All right, if it's our enemy, we want to do the same thing. We're going to get our enemy health. That's going to be equal to our the enemy health, I guess. That's going to be equal to get component. And once again, we're going to go in and look for that actual component. Oh, what am I saying? Not get component. We got to find it first. On the hit dot game object dot get component. Sorry. Get component. And once again, we are looking for our enemy health. Boom, boom, boom. And once we have our enemy health, we can use our enemy health, any of the things. We're going to add our damage, and once again, we're going to add damage. All right, so far, so good. There is one last thing that I'm going to do here, and what I basically want to do in the update is I want to change the explosion lights power over time. And I'm going to use a lerp. We've already used the lerp for this, so I'm going to use the explosion light dot intensity, and that just gives me access to the intensity itself. Is going to be equal to, and we're going to use a math.f, and we're going to use the lerp. So we're going to lerp between two values. So we're going to lerp between the explosion light dot intensity and 0. That's where we want to go to. We want to go all the way down to 0 over time. All right, comma, and we're going to lerp it over some smoothing. Let's make it 5. It doesn't really matter. 5 times time dot time. All right, so over time, we're going to slowly make the light. The light is going to be on its full intensity when the explosion first occurs, and then after a certain amount of time, after it's lerped through this, the light itself is going to shrink down in its intensity. Okay, so we're going to have this explosion of light and then no light at all. And that, guys, is all we really need to happen. So let's file save that, and as long as, file save, as long as I've done everything right, let's close off some of this stuff here. Let's see. There we go. My computer's going really slow today. All right, so we've got ourselves a bunch of our actual public variables here available to us in our inspector. And that means everything went pretty well. So first of all, the explosion light is going to be the light that we included inside of our actual explosion. Let me shrink this down. Inside of our actual explosion, so I'm going to drag it. I'm going to drop it in there. The amount of power we have, that's going to be something that we have to kind of decide. We have to kind of decide as we move forward. It's going to have to be something we kind of play test for certain. So for now, I'm going to put in a random number. Let's put in 15. Let's put in a radius of, I don't know, 5. Again, this is all playtest numbers. And let's put in a damage of, let's put in 10 for now. I don't remember what did our character have. I don't want our character to die. I just want to see if this works. Game controller, where's my character? What did I call my character? Soldier, here he is. What was his health? He had full health of 30. All right, so that's not so bad. So let's maximize on play. He's right next to the explosion to begin with. When I hit play here, let's see what happens. Play. Boom. You saw that oh, he didn't take any damage, so we'll have to check that out. Something did not go right there. But we actually, you saw my character actually jump to start off with. Let's move my guy a little closer and see what we get. Make sure that our radius is large enough. I don't know if it is or not. Let me drag him down a little bit and hit play. There we go. We saw him fly up into the air, so it actually added the appropriate force, but I didn't actually get any damage, so let me go take a look at that and see what happened. Okay, guys, it was a very, very simple error, and if we take a look here at our actual explosion, we go in here and we try and find a bunch of different stuff, and what we do is we go in and we go to the player add damage and the enemy health add damage. The problem that we had was the start function. The start function hadn't actually kicked in yet, and nothing had been created yet as far as the player audio source or anything else was concerned. The player was just dying. He wasn't there yet. So the explosion occurred, it would go in, it would find the player health, but it wouldn't actually have found that anything had loaded up yet. And everything in turn would crash. Sorry, I just touched my mic there. Everything in turn would crash. All right, guys, so if you have the same problem as me, simply go in and change your void start in your player health, your void start to void awake, and your enemy health, go to your void start and change it to void awake. When you do, now whenever I hit play, boom, bam, I take damage. You can see that the explosion went off. I made my ouch noise, and I've actually taken some damage. Great. Last thing you should do, find your explosion and where's my explosion? Explosion, find your explosion, drag it and drop it into your prefabs folder, bam, bam, and once you do, you can simply delete it. Well, not like that. Delete it properly. You don't need it anymore. It's now inside of your prefabs, and it can be used for almost anything you want. Make a grenade, have your rocket explode, whatever you want. Let's say you wanted to create, let's say we wanted to create a barrel, an exploding barrel. All right, let's set this to, let's reset this thing here so it's at 0, 0, 0. Reset. 0.015, I think, is the appropriate number. Yes, 0.015 and 0.015. All right, so there we go. I've got a barrel in there now. I'm going to add a couple of components. Let me add a physics. I will add a capsule collider to top level my barrel. I'm going to make this thing into an enemy, and I'm going to make it shootable. All right, and you just change this one, doesn't really matter. My capsule collider, let's make it bigger so I can actually shoot it. Let's make it have a height of 100, and let's put it at y equals 50, and let's give it a radius of 20. Is that accurate? No, too tiny. Let's give it a radius of 50. All right, and still too small. Let's give it a height of 200. It doesn't really matter for now. Bam, that's good enough. And what we're going to do is we're going to add to this a couple of things. We'll add ourselves an audio source to make a noise. Like we're just building a regular enemy here. We're just going to build our regular old enemy. Let's add in here a... we don't need you anymore. We don't need you. Let's add in here our enemy, our script, our enemy health. Enemy health. All right, and let's add in here maximum health. Let's give it 10. Damage modifier of 1, so it doesn't really do anything. Damage particles. Let's go find something in our prefab. This is more work than I thought it was going to be. Zombie hit. Damage particle, zombie hit. Let's add a drop in there. All right, so the drop is going to be our explosion. All right, there's our drop. Our death sound. Audio. Let's make our death sound. Let's make it the same as a zombie. Whatever. It's a zombie sound. All right, and let's add in. Of course, we have to add in our prefabs. We have to add in our floating health bar. Let's just drag it and drop it on there, and we will drag our floating health bar into our slider. All right, now when I hit play, I think this should work. Shoot! Bam! It goes off. It hit me. It actually dropped the explosion. That is pretty cool. Now, why didn't its health bar... Oh, its health bar didn't turn up because... Why didn't your health bar turn up? Barrel. Enemy health slider. It should have. Should have showed up. Let me see where I put it. Is it too small? Let me make this bigger and see. Yeah, it's way down there. It's teeny, teeny, tiny. Let's make this thing here. Let's drag it off for now. If you've got this problem, guys, just go in here and make sure that it's set to 0, 0, 0. First of all, I'm going to set to 0, 0, 0. I'm going to make sure that the actual scale is 1 and 1 and 1. And once it's set up like that, then take it and drag it. It's obviously turned the wrong way, too. I'm going to spin it because I set it wrong now. Rotation 360. That's weird. Rotation 0. All right. So once you've got the way you like it, then take it and drag it and drop it on the barrel itself, and it'll stay the appropriate size. And afterwards, you can move it. That's a little mistake and a little lesson to learn. Let me drag it. Let me put it up here. There's my awesome health slider. Let's turn it off again and try that one more time. There we go. Exploding terrain. I have all my full health. Shoot, bam, and I took a massive amount of damage. All right, guys, that's it. That's how easy it is to actually make an exploding barrel. I hope you guys liked that episode. That finished off our explosion. That finished off one of our big special effects. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know down in the comments. Let me know. I always like to hear from you, so I touched my mic again, sorry. If you like something, let me know with a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, a thumbs down is perfectly fine. Tell me why you don't like it, though. Say, hey, I didn't like this episode. I hate exploding barrels. I don't care what you say. But just let me know what it is, and that way I can make changes. I can make corrections. All right, guys? Love to hear from you, so give me lots of comments. And you know what? I'd rather have thumbs up than thumbs down, to be honest. Anyway, thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below. And if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourself a wonderful day, everyone.